Hello and welcome to the Medical Sales Podcast, and I am your host, Samuel. In this podcast, I interview top medical sales reps and leading medical sales executives across the entire country. And it doesn't matter what medical sales industry, from medical device to pharmaceutical to genetic testing to diagnostic lab, you name it. You will learn how to either break into the industry, be a top 5% performer within your role in sales, or climb the corporate ladder. Welcome to the Medical Sales Podcast. Hello and welcome to the Medical Sales Podcast. And this episode, we're going to do something a little different. This is the first episode of the year. So what better way to kick off the year with doing something a little different? Normally, I bring to you a sales leader or a sales professional or someone in the sales and operations space within medical device sales, pharmaceutical sales, genetic sales, molecular sales, and biotech. And today it's going to be a little different because we're having someone coming from the private equity space. And we're actually going to get into a conversation around how private equity plays into medical sales, especially with medical sales startups, and how one particularly new company that this individual, Carlos Gregory, our guest today, is president of. His private equity firm has backed this company called Jar Bio that is introducing a product to the world that's literally revolutionizing COVID management. This is a product that sterilizes any environment that's been exposed to COVID in a matter of minutes without any liquid or light. And I won't even tell you anything more. It's pretty fascinating stuff, and I know you're gonna love it when you hear it. And for those of you that are just interested in how private equity works in relation to startups when it comes to medical, especially medical device sales, then this is definitely an episode you want to open your ears up to and listen in on. As always, thank you so much for listening to the Medical Sales Podcast. And I'm excited to bring this guest to you and it being the first episode of the year for us. So let's jump right into it and let's have a listen. Hey, Carlos, how are you today?
I'm doing great, Samuel. How are you?
Fantastic. Just making sense of 2020.
Yeah, you and me both.
So I'm so glad you could join us. This is Carlos. Carlos, actually, he comes from Florida, and he's the president of a company called JAR Bio. Carlos is in the private equity space. Private equity merges with a lot of different industries, including healthcare. So before I say any more, I'm going to let Carlos introduce himself. And so, Carlos, tell us who you are and what you do.
Hey, Samuel, thank you. And thanks for letting us be on the show. We're really excited about the opportunity. I primarily am a leader, man. I really enjoy being around people, and I enjoy serving others and helping other people achieve their goals. And I've been fortunate enough in my life to have made some really good decisions that's allowed me to invest in different spaces. And so, now, having a small private equity group set up, we're investing in a couple of different opportunities, some in real estate, but we've had this tremendous opportunity to get into medical device sales, and primarily around whole room disinfection, which is impacting us all right now. And it's very real. And I think we have a great product and probably one of the best products in our class on the market today. The only thing is that nobody knows about it, right? So, we're out here to try to tell our story, tell everybody about our product and continue to grow the business and help as many people as we can along the way.
Definitely. And we're going to get into all of that. But first, I want to ask you, how does, in general, how does the private equity space relate to healthcare from your vantage point?
Yeah, I think private equity gives healthcare a big boost in its ability to finance quickly, its ability to help companies that are maybe a little bit smaller grow faster, to reach their goals and reach other audiences at a much more rapid pace, right? So we all know about the perpetual growth model of some of the institutional companies like Johnson & Johnson, that it's in customer service-based model, but we're trying to achieve very, very rapid growth through, frankly, hard work and investing in the right people and in the right places.
Got it. And how would you say that this time that we're all working through right now, 2020 being really the quarantine year, how would you say it's affected private equity?
I would say that, out of the gate, it was very concerning. There was a lot of of deals that got sidelined. Of late, I would tell you that that's kind of turned a little bit. We're seeing deals, more and more deals close, more and more deals kind of, coming together. And a lot of that had to do because of the quarantine, people's inability to actually meet face to face. And frankly, valuations of companies were being looked at, several different ways, right? There's a term being thrown around called EBITDA, which is earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, amortization, and COVID. And we've always talked about, are you Amazon proof, or, are you recession proof? And now it's like, are you COVID proof, or what's going to happen to you after that? So it's affected the industry a couple of different ways, but I'd say that there's a lot of deals that are getting done. And it's been really, really neat to see how some of the companies that were already in private equity backed portfolios have adapted and have really created new revenue streams that they probably never even imagined possible.
Yeah. Wow. That's amazing. In your opinion, a sales rep understanding how private equity plays into the company he works for, what is the best thing you think a sales rep can take away from understanding that? Or a sales professional? Let me say sales professional, because this includes leaders too.
Yeah. So the way private equity impacts them is really just numbers, right? I think that whole ownership organizations, you think of a Johnson & Johnson or something like that,
yeah,
they have quotas, but it's very patient, right? They have really no interest in selling or exiting their companies anytime soon. Mm-hmm. And so for them, it's the long-term appreciation of values. And when private equity, it's the, immediate appreciation of value and then exit, right? So when you think about that sales process, private equity, is much more inclined to, spend more in commissions and marketing to get deals done faster mm-hmm. than, your typical institutional, enterprise like a Johnson & Johnson. Yeah. So I think that's how, it relates to a sales professional and it's really a unique opportunity to work in a private equity-backed organization because the urgency is there. And I think that sales professionals who are truly sales professionals, that's an exciting scenario for them, right? It's, it's how much money can I make and how quickly can I make it? And versus the traditional kind of, hey, I'm going to make X amount of money and it's going to be over a period of time.
And the difference with private equity, of course, it's not patient focused. It's business focused. So it's speaking to people they're less about the impact they're making in healthcare on what patients experience, and more about the money they want to make in their role.
Yeah, I'd say that's private. For private equity, it's all about the investor return, right? And so as operators, we have to filter that, right? We have to filter that expectation and create, compelling mission statements around the value of the business and what that really means to the team, right? So, yeah, at the end of the day, that's what we're trying to achieve, but we certainly don't want to build an organizational culture that's 100% money focused, right? That's where I think it's important for these individuals to understand that, yeah, it's private equity backed, and yes, the numbers are important, but we also want individuals that are going to transition into account manager type roles and build out, a client book, a business that is significant and kind of keeps going into perpetuity. So private equity right now is getting beat up for destroying certain industries and certain organizations. It's catching a bad rap. And I think, the reason why that's happening is because there are a lot of private equity companies that don't care right? They saw the numbers make sense, and they drive the numbers as hard as they possibly can with their intended result at whatever cost. For us, it's a little bit different. We really do believe in what we're doing. We care about what we're doing. We care about the people's lives that we're impacting. But at the same time, we're trying to achieve aggressive goals, right?
So give me an example of that. Like, give me an example of what a bad representation of a private equity firm does and what you guys do.
Yeah. So, I would tell you, you don't have to look really far. In the landscaping sector, Brightview and Brickman, there was a company called Valley Crest, which was the gold standard of landscaping at a national level.
Okay.
That landscaping company then sold in large part to KKR, and it destroyed the company. They basically went 100% metrics based. It was no longer about the customer experience. It was no longer about delivering a quality service. They literally got to a point where they had analysts, financial analysts, going out to sites and counting how many steps a landscaper took from the time that they got out of their vehicle to the time that they got on their mower and started working, and tried to figure out how to reduce that by a certain percentage, because that would reduce the amount of time on the job, which would reduce the cost of labor, which would have a direct impact to their bottom line.
Wow. Okay. So which private equity firm was involved in this deal?
KKR.
KKR. So KKR, instead of allowing a better company to buy this landscaping company, they just went to the highest bidder. Did they already know that it wouldn't look good for the way this other company does the metrics and tries to manage the landscapers? Or
yeah, so no, what they ended up doing was they took the company public.
Wow.
They took the company to public, retained a significant amount of equity in the company, took it public, and the stock has been a little over the place. I think that eventually they'll figure it out, but I think that the easiest way to look at it is like, look, I have a tremendous amount of respect for finance-minded individuals. I think that, the numbers are important, and it helps us measure what we're doing and where we should go. But it should never be the leading factor of operations. I believe that customer service should be the leading factor of operations, and then ultimately your ability to serve the customer well is what impacts your financials.
So in that example, what would you guys have done differently?
I think in the example of what KKR did, you had a company that was already running very, very well. I think that they probably should have invested more in technology that would have streamlined operations, and going out and really, counting how many steps somebody took, right? Landscaping is an industry that's one that's, I think could be disrupted by significant advancements in lawnmower equipment and those types of things. You think about robotics as one of those examples. So, I think they should have invested a little bit more in technology and approached it from that perspective, than taking away the service, side of it and reducing, the time on the job.
Got it. You, as a private equity firm, your main goal is to take companies public, or is to get companies sold? Like, what is your main goal?
Yeah, our number one goal is to create, value for our companies, which obviously, creates the return for our investors, right? So we create value for those companies. If companies, and it depends, right? If companies are really performing well, and the amount of profitability that the company has makes sense, and it's meeting what we believe our investors are looking for, and those conversations, obviously happen regularly, then, we'll hold on to it as long as we possibly can, and just have that perpetual growth model, right?
So, right.
From 1 to 5 to 10 to 15 to 20 to 20, right? And until it gets to a point where it just becomes more valuable for the return on our investors to sell it, to go public, than keeping it. So I wouldn't say that every single deal is the same and that our priorities are the same. I tell you that the one priority that is the same across the board is just to build significant value at a very, very rapid pace.
Okay. The typical company that you guys acquire, at what stage are they when they go to you?
Usually they're looking for, growth investment, right? So they already have a product or a service that makes sense, that we have some familiarity with. And then, they just need an investor to line up with them and an operating team to help support what they're trying to do, right? Which is the scenario here. We have something. We believe it's really good. We don't know how to get it out to the market, right? And we need some money to be able to achieve that and scale. And so that's where we align well with companies where, I would say under $5 million in top line revenue, but that have something unique that's valuable, and that we believe that our network, can get behind and then help grow.
And I didn't know. I thought private equity firms are just there for funding, meaning they pretty much take on companies that, like you said, have a lot of promise and are there to help grow them. But from what you've shared with the example you gave me of the company that wasn't doing very well, wasn't doing good things, it seems like they have management. They're involved in management and how the company continues to grow and make money. Yeah.
I believe that's what's happening, right? And it's because of those, things, the stories like the KKR, and there are many, many, many more, where it was really just, here's a bunch of money, that you asked for. Now go and achieve the results that you said you were going to achieve. And if you don't, we're going to beat you up, right? Constantly beat you up. And as as less and less companies were putting themselves on the market for private equity groups, private equity, they had to change, right? It's like, well, now we're competing against the guy at the private equity group who wants to not only give money, but offer his experience and the network that he has and their experience. And that's, an advisory board, and help the founder of the company grow as a professional, as a person. And so when these, competitive attributes begin to become more and more normal, then companies, had to start making those changes and adjustments. Now, there's some that have thesis statements around, they don't even look for a company. They just look for a professional, an executive. And if that executive, has a thesis around, one that's very common right now is temporary staffing agencies, then they'll say, okay, we'll invest in you. You go find a company that makes sense, and then we'll use that as a starting point, if you will, as a springboard to acquire other similar companies in your space.
What kind of profile does someone have to for a private equity firm to want to invest in that professional? What type of people are these?
Yeah, I think it's just proof, right? That you've been able to operate at a high level, lead teams to success, and reach a certain, revenue number, right? I think those are some of the, at a very basic level, right? Obviously, high, strong character, highly ethical, integrity, loyal. There's a lot of things that go into that conversation. But we're seeing more and more of that, especially now that you see a lot more of family offices going direct. What do I mean by that? Previously family offices would just invest in, other investment groups, right? A Morgan Stanley or a Merrill Lynch, and or they would, sponsor a private equity group and invest in that group, and then they would do. Now family offices are hiring investment bankers and going out and seeking out their own deals to invest in.
When you say family offices, what are you referring to?
Directly. So, over the years, just families that have acquired substantial amounts of money.
Wow. So just individuals that got some money.
Yeah. So, think of like the Bush family, right? The Bush family has acquired a lot of money over the years, and They establish an office and they hire a management team and investment bankers and the whole thing. And they go out
and they just look for money, where to put some of this money, and that's it. And private equity firms are now getting involved in finding that growth and helping grow their family wealth.
Yeah. And so I'm saying, that's how it's been traditionally. The family office would kind of fall under the private equity group as an investor. Now family offices are negotiating and competing against private equity groups for the acquisition of certain companies.
Wow.
Yeah. And that seems to be growing and becoming more and more common.
So what for you as a private equity firm, what does a potential client have for you guys to even consider investing in them and helping them grow?
Yeah. For me, it's important that the product or the service is proven, that the customer base is pretty well established, that they don't have all of their eggs in one basket, and that you either have a founding team or a management team that really lives and breathes and dreams about the company and what they think they can do, right? And then really understand whether or not, again, our network within our team and with some of our investors can help the company grow, right? Once we get past the concept and what it is and what they do and that it's proven, then it's like, okay, well, can we really help them with more than just dollars, but can we really add value to the team? Can we make some changes to the team that'll add value? And then can we leverage our network to grow revenue? And if we can answer yes to all of those questions, then we start looking at, really the financials and does it make sense, what we would be willing to invest versus what they're looking for.
So with you guys, you guys have to be earning at least this much for us to even consider working with you.
Yeah. I'm sorry, say that last part again.
For you guys, it doesn't have to be, whoever you take on as a customer, they have to be their business has to be making so many dollars for you guys even to start with, for you guys even to consider working with them. You guys don't have
rules. No, not necessarily. Not necessarily. I mean, we're on the low side of the lower middle market, right? I think there's a lot of institutional dollars and upper middle market, middle market, lower middle market. And when I say that, I'm talking about, companies that are generating, upwards of $20 million a year, right? Okay. And then you have, some of these smaller companies, which are still good companies in that same space, right? So my thought is I can add a lot more. Maybe a lot more value at those levels to get them to $5, $7, $10 million, where the valuations begin to improve and change, and maybe I take 3 companies that are doing $3 million, take the best of the 3, and then now I have a $9 million company that's going to trade maybe at 7, 8 times EBITDA, but I acquired each one of those at 2 to 3 times EBITDA, right? So it begins to scale. So yeah, and the other part is this is just something that I really enjoy doing, right? I enjoy putting deals together. I enjoy helping people do things that they didn't believe that they could do. Right. And I've been doing that my entire career. There was a company years ago, guy that came to me, said, I got this idea and I think I could do good at it. He had $50,000. I didn't take a dime, owned 0% of the company. And with his $50,000 in financial investment and years of sweat equity, he's got a $3 million company 8 years later.
Wow. Okay.
Right. So those are the things that excite me about what I do. And really are, the reason why I do it. Obviously, I recognize that, but at the end of the day, that's the part that I enjoy.
Oh, you broke up. You said, obviously what?
I said, it'd be naive not to recognize that we're on the right side of the economics in a lot of these deals that we do.
Right.
But I think we've earned that right. And at the same time, what's exciting is just watching it grow, right? Watching the people grow, watching the businesses grow, dealing with the challenges, how those challenges, really, really define the individual and the company and make it stronger over time. And so it's exciting to see that all come together.
That's excellent. So in your career, how many startup medical device companies have come to you?
Well, not very many. I mean, medical device is, something that wasn't even on my radar, to be honest with you. This was an opportunity that kind of fell in my lap, and it must have been 250 hours of due diligence just in medical device industry. And then probably another 150 hours of due diligence on this particular project with disinfection. And I saw that there was a really, really unique opportunity in the space, and particularly in the product. What I've seen in the medical device is that manufacturers, by and large, are very proud, very invention-based, engineer-based, and a lot of them maybe haven't had the experience or lack the knowledge, or really just don't care about having a good investment thesis or a good business plan or a good marketing plan. And that's what's been kind of interesting to me at the level that we're investing at. But look, medical device is nothing new, right? I mean, there's lots of companies. There's been, over the last 20 years, a lot of private equity groups backing medical device companies, and it's performing, right? It's a sector that's been growing and not surging, but it's had steady growth. And I think the companies are attractive because they have high margins, they have good growth metrics, and they vary, right? You have people that don't even manufacture anything, right? Zero widgets. They're just the distributors of widgets.
Right.
And there's private equity companies backing the distributors of the widgets. So there's a lot of ways to get into it. But the compelling argument for me in this investment strategy was, it's not just a medical device that's made for healthcare, although that is what it was intended to be. I think what's happening with COVID and what's happening in society, and what we've already been able to prove, is that there's a broader spectrum of industry, where it can be very, very helpful.
So then, when it comes to a medical, let's because that's an interesting topic. I want to spend a little bit more time on startups. When it comes to a new startup company and they're in the medical device space, when do they typically come to you? Have you just experienced them coming to you at any stage, from idea to full-blown company that's in operation, they're trying to get bigger? When do they typically come to you, and when would you prefer jumping in?
So, it's been a little bit of a couple of different things. So, we've had the ones that I have an idea on paper, and are looking for venture capital. We turn those away pretty quickly. We have obviously other folks in venture capital space that we know of, and we try to connect them with the right folks that'll be able to help them at the stage that they are. Yeah. So for me, that's a true startup, right? Like, you got an idea, you think it's going to work, you maybe have some market research that supports, your thesis, but you haven't built it yet, right? The way we operate, we need to be a little bit further down the road than that, right? We need to have a product that's already out there, a product that's already been registered with the right agencies. We want to make sure that, again, the market is fairly broad, and that they're looking for, a partner, not only a financial partner, but a partner that's going to help them put together the plan, to success, right? And that's where we get excited. When you already have a device, and it doesn't have to necessarily be a device, it could be MedTech. We're talking to a company right now in Germany that has a super simple software that's also an application that is basically like reservations for emergency rooms. And emergency rooms and doctors' offices. And there's some software out there that already does that, but this one is just very, very user friendly, and they've done a really good job of tailoring it to the patient, which I think will be attractive as far as, them, the adaptability. Anyway, so right now we're working on that with some investors out of Spain to introduce that in Europe, and then potentially bring it over to the United States. So MedTech is an opportunity there as well. And again, the app is already running. They've already tested it. It's been going for a couple of years now, so they have some traction. And then they're just trying to figure out, okay, how do we take on market share? What is our business plan? What should we be focusing on now? We've already developed it. What do we need to do to adjust it? How do we figure that out? And that's where we add value, and that's the type of companies that we get excited about.
Got it. And do you guys get involved with the hiring of the sales teams of these companies? Do you get that deeply involved? Or do you kind of just step back and let them do whatever they feel it needs to be done?
Yeah, no, I would say it depends. We want the company to be successful, and sometimes the founders or the folks kind of running the company at the time that we get involved haven't had the experience or the opportunity in their careers to interview 1,000+ people.
Right.
And you learn a couple of things when you've interviewed 1,000+ people.
Sure.
You can learn so much from a book and from HR training and all that stuff, but nothing like the good old gut.
Right.
Along with some support. So yeah, we get involved. We want to move it a little bit earlier. For me and what we do and how we invest, you gotta focus on the team. You got to focus on the team. The team will create the financial results. The financial results don't create the team.
So it's obvious that when you're starting out, when you're a company, you're starting out, you got to find great players to place in leadership so that you can establish a great team. Have you guys helped people establish their leadership team? Not just the sales folks bringing on, like interviewing thousands of people, but just, a CEO maybe, and one or two other people, and they need a leadership team. There's promise in what they have. Have you guys helped them put their leadership team together?
Sure. Yeah. And it's all just based on, really what the founders were trying to do. And I think that's an important part, right? In some cases you think of a Mark Zuckerberg, right? Like, what a success story. Highly atypical that a founder continues to operate a company once it's gotten to that size, right? It's very, very unusual. And the same thing, here. They're very good. They're very passionate. Sometimes they can be their own worst enemy, right? Because they get boxed into this way of thinking because they've never been exposed to other things before, or other experiences or larger organizations. And so we have to kind of balance that carefully, right? Helping the founder achieve their full potential and add tremendous value to the organization if they wish to stay in it, which is a whole nother conversation. But, and then of others, once they kind of reach their maximum, recognizing that you're better suited now to serve as an advisory board member or, the chairman of the board or vice chair or something like that. And then putting an operator who's already had success scaling a business that size or greater, or maybe there's somebody within the organization that isn't a founding member, if you will, but maybe a member of the management team that's just been growing through the company, who has a tremendous amount of potential, and is willing to look at things a different way to be able to reach the full value for the organization.
So that often happens then when a founder who had the idea, who's got everything going, when you guys step in, the private equity firm, you ask the founder, hey, you need to take a seat. Yeah.
And sometimes they know they need to, right?
When they do that, they're not losing ownership, right? They're just losing control of the day-to-day.
Yeah. Yes. So we step in and we're acquiring equity in the company. So there's always a redistribution of ownership that occurs, right? But yeah, in many scenarios, it's really one of two things, right? They're selling because they want out, right? and the founders just, they've had it. Great idea. They love it. They want to take, their money and move to the Bahamas.
Sure.
And never think about it ever again, which, we really don't like investing in that type of situation. And we prefer the founder who's like, this is what I got. It's great. I think this is what I need to do. I need some money and I need some people to help guide me to the next level. Right. And then as we go through the levels, it's really then understanding, okay, what are your capabilities as a professional, as a CEO to really drive the business? Or are you just better at, research and development? And then, that's your stronghold. So we never let the founder feel like they've lost complete control of the company. We always want to make sure that they feel like they continue to add a tremendous amount of value, and have those conversations early on. Those expectations are set before the first dollar is delivered, right? We never want it to be uncomfortable or a surprise, and so we're very careful.
And that was part 1 of our episode with Carlos Gregory and medical devices in the private equity space. But you need to make sure you come back next week for part 2, because that's where we get into the details of what Jar Bio is working on and this amazing product that they're introducing to the world that's seriously changing the game for COVID-19 management and just keeping environments clear and safe for people to enter freely. So make sure you come back next week and listen to the rest of this interview. Again, thank you for listening to the Medical Sales Podcast. If you're someone out there that's looking to get into a role, it's the beginning of the year. You're looking to make a big change. You want to do something big. You want to make something you've been dreaming about or thinking about for a long time finally happen. Then don't spend any more time just sitting there thinking and wishing. Visit evolveyoursuccess.com. Select Attain a Medical Sales Role. Take the assessment. Get some clarity on exactly what you need to do to get the position you want. And then schedule a call with us and let's make some amazing things happen. It's a brand new year with brand new opportunities to make some brand new things happen. If you're someone out there that's looking to improve your sales performance and you really want to really just make it a solid year, do something completely different and make the goal that you've been wanting to make, or maybe you want to get a promotion, or maybe you've been thinking about a department in your company that you've been just eyeing and wish you can get into, and you're sitting there and you're thinking to yourself, how am I going to make this happen? Again, it's time to take action in 2021. Visit evolveyoursuccess.com, select Improve Sales Performance, and have a conversation with us, and let's show you how we can help you make that happen. And then lastly, this show has allowed so many people to find out what's going on in other fields. And it's really connected. It's connected different fields. I like to even say it's connected different industries. So if you're a leader out there, or maybe you're a startup yourself, or maybe you're just working on something, and you would significantly benefit from connecting to some other leaders or some different companies, then visit evolveyoursuccess.com. Get into contact with me. You can email me at samuel@evolveyoursuccess.com. And let's have a conversation and help you reach these goals that you've set for yourself in 2021. So again, make sure you tune in next week. We're going to get all into Jar Bio, what they're working on. And for those of you that are looking to potentially make a change, maybe you've been in pharma for a while or medical device sales for a while, and now you have an opportunity to get into something different, or something's happened in the company you used to work for, and now you're in a position to just choose wherever you want to go. It's time to explore some things, and Jar Bio is a company to explore because they're looking for significantly talented individuals in the medical sales space, and there's a lot of good to do and compensation to receive. So tune in next week for part 2, and thank you again for listening to the Medical Sales Podcast. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. And remember, I have a couple programs that show you exactly how to break into the medical sales industry, become a top-performing medical sales professional, and also how to masterfully navigate your career to executive-level leadership. Check out these programs and learn more at evolveyoursuccess.com. Stay tuned for more awesome content with amazing interviews.